Good morning, everybody. I hope that you are safe and feeling settled this week. I want to share with you some thoughts from one of the minor prophets in the Bible, a guy named Habakkuk. Habakkuk had a lot of questions for God. In chapter 1, verses 1 to 5, he says these words, "How long, O Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? Violence is everywhere." He says, "I cry out, but you do not come to save. Must I forever see these evil deeds? Why must I watch all of this misery?" He says, "Wherever I look, I see destruction and violence, and I'm surrounded by people who love to argue and love to fight. The law has become paralyzed, and there is no justice in the courts. The wicked far outnumber the righteous, so that justice has become perverted." I think our current world situation isn't exactly like that, but I suspect that you have some of the same questions about what's going on in our world also. Habakkuk says basically, God, tell me what you're doing. Let me know why the world is the way that it is. And I want you to listen to God's response. And I got to warn you, it's not exactly what you think it's going to be. In verse 5, God says, "Look around at the nations, look and be amazed, for I'm doing something in your own day, something that you wouldn't even believe it if I told you about it." Basically, God's telling Habakkuk, "Nope, I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing, because even if I did, you wouldn't believe it, and you wouldn't understand it, and you certainly wouldn't accept it." See, I told you it wasn't an answer that you were expecting. You know, when you hear that, when you hear God say, "I'm not going to tell you what you want to know," does that sound to you like a loving God or an arrogant God? I personally think it's a loving God, and here's the reason why. In the school system, there's a reason why there are various grades. You see, a child in grade 2 isn't able to comprehend or excel at physics or chemistry. It's not their fault. They just simply aren't ready for it. And it would be mean for us to try to force them to understand. So God here isn't being mean. He's not being arrogant in not explaining every detail of what he's up to. He's simply reminding us that we aren't yet ready for it because we don't think like God thinks. He says something similar to this in Isaiah 55 verses 8 and 9. He says, "My thoughts are nothing like your thoughts, and my ways are beyond anything that you could possibly imagine. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts." Friends, we really need to understand something, and I want you to listen close to this. We are not God. Now, I know that shocks some of you, but the truth is we are human and we have limitations. We are limited by time, by space, and by knowledge. We don't know the beginning from the end, and we don't always understand the best way to do things, especially in these disconcerting times like this. So my challenge to you is to not put your trust in your paycheck or in your health or in the safety and security that this world seems to offer, but rather in God, who sees the big picture and who understands the beginning from the end and who has a master plan that is being worked out even when and if we don't know what it is. You see, God knows what he's doing. He knows what he's up to. And it's our job to take care of having faith in him, as we've been talking about a lot on Sundays, to trust him for what we don't understand. Having faith in God is having faith that he's not like us. We can't put him in a box that is the size and the shape that we approve of. He's not limited by the things that we are. He's omnipresent, which means he's everywhere at all times. He's omniscient, which means that he knows everything. And he's omnipowerful, which means he's all-powerful. And one last thing, he's immutable, which means he does not change, ever. So instead of trying to figure things out, instead of wondering why God is allowing the things that are happening in our world, can I just challenge you to try resting in the fact that he knows what he's doing, and like a child trusts their father, so too should we trust him? Practice trusting God when you aren't sure what's going on, when life seems to be a disaster, and when you have no answers. It will calm your heart, and it will help you to focus on the one who does have the answers. That's really what Habakkuk did. I want you to see the conclusion that he came to at the end of his book. In Habakkuk 3, verses 17 to 19, he said these words, "Even though the fig trees have no blossoms, and there are no grapes on the vines, even though the olive crop fails, and the fields lie empty and barren, even though the flocks die in the fields, and the cattle barns are empty." Basically, he's saying, even though everything around me doesn't make sense, and everything seems to be falling apart, he says now in verse 19, he says this, verse 18, he says this, Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in the God of my salvation. The sovereign Lord is my strength, he says. Friends, I want to remind you, you can do this. Look to God in the moments of greatest need. Trust him and have faith in him and let him take care of the direction of your life. That's my word for today. Hope you enjoy it. Have a great day.